Welcome to this yin yoga practice for the water element. So we're going to begin with Nadi Shodhana, which is a pranayama technique which supports the balance of what we call Ida and Pingala. Ida refers to the yin energy in the body, or the more feminine, more passive, more receptive, more stable, more downwards in its direction. And Pingala is the more yang quality of energy in the body. So more dynamic, upwards moving, refers more to the masculine energy in the body. Ida and Pingala have pathways, energetic pathways, that run down the center of the body. They spiral around Sushumna, which is the central reserve of energy in the body. And it's a calming technique, I would say. For me, it feels calming, but it depends on how you do it, because you can use either the right nostril or left nostril breathing to help support more yang or more yin. We're going to work in a balanced way, breathing evenly through both nostrils to help bring us back into balance. And we're going to try to invite this balancing pranayama technique into the whole of the practice through visualization rather than the mechanical function of our hands. But we're going to start with the hand. Just as a note, if you are blocked in one nostril or both, you can still do the practice because you can do it visually. You can just imagine the breath flowing in and out through the different nostrils. So don't let that put you off. But using the technique, Nadi Shodhana itself, can help to unblock the nostrils as well. So let's rest the back of the left hand on the thigh, palm facing up. And we'll take the right hand up against the third eye. So press into Ajna Chakra, this point between the eyebrows, with your second and your third fingers on the right hand. So Ajna Chakra, or connecting with this acupressure point, can help with mental clarity. Just allow the mind to settle into the sensation of that light touch. It's almost like the drishti, the inner gaze, is moving inwards and upwards to that point. And you really don't have to press too hard. And then let's just see if the nostrils are open. So rest the thumb against the right nostril and breathe in and out through the left. And then rest the fourth finger against the left nostril and see if you can breathe in and out through the right. So mine is a bit blocked, but I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just not going to close off the left nostril completely. And with time it will release. Okay, soften the shoulders, allow your spine to be upright. Again, we're helping to unblock yin-yang energy along more or less the pathway of the spine. So we want the spine to be as upright as possible. Make sure you're sitting on something that supports that uplift of the spine. And then again, resting the second and third fingers of the right hand against the third eye. Let's take a deep breath in through both nostrils and a full exhalation. Then close off your right nostril, which corresponds to Pingala, or the yang energy, and inhale through the left side, Ida, the feminine energy, or yin. Close off both nostrils. Just for a moment, hold the breath. And then keeping the fourth finger down, we're going to exhale out of the right side. At the bottom of the breath, there's a pause. Honor that. And then breathe in through that same right side. Hold the breath at the top, closing off that right nostril with your thumb, and exhale out of the left side. Breathe in through the same left side. Close both nostrils, release the right with the thumb, and exhale out of the right side. We inhale each time through the same side, so here through the right. And we exhale out of the opposite side, so here releasing the left nostril with the fourth finger. Draw energy in through that same left side, the yin channel opening. Close off the left nostril with the fourth finger and exhale out of the right. Inhale through the same right side, the masculine or yang channel opening, Pingala. Close off the right nostril with the thumb and exhale out of the left. So each time you breathe in through that same side, left side opening, you exhale out of the opposite side, so here the right, all the way down to the bottom. Inhale through the right side. Exhale out of the left side. Inhale through the same left side. Exhale out of the right side. Inhale through the right side. Exhale out of the left. Inhale through the left side. Exhale out of the right side. Inhale through the right side. Exhale out of the left. Let's do 3 more rounds. Inhale. Exhale out of the opposite side. You inhale through the same side. You exhale out of the opposite side. Inhale through the same left side. Exhale out of the opposite side. 1 more round. Inhale. And exhale. Release the right hand down, palms facing up, soften the shoulders and breathe through both nostrils. You're settling into your practice already, but notice any resistance that may have come up, physical tension, mental disturbances, maybe the discomfort of your environment, or maybe there's just a sense of calming now. Take 1 more deep round of breath in and out. And then open up the eyes. Okay, so something a little bit more yang now. Let's tap into the meridians while we're still sitting just for a moment, and we'll stand up. We'll start with kidney 1. So the first acupressure point on the kidney channel is in the soles of the feet. It's about 1/3 of the way down, so just under the ball of the foot, between the 2nd and 3rd toes, around about here. It's often a point that you want to massage into. This point tends to get quite sore, for me at least, during the course of the day if I'm walking a lot. So you could massage into it on both sides. And then you can also tap it using your fists to invigorate that point. And then you could either tap if you want to be a bit more vigorous, or massage gently if you want to be a bit more yin, around the medial malleosis, so around the bone of the ankle on the inside. There's 3 key acupressure points here around this bone, all connecting to the kidney channel. So you can massage around there. It's a really calming place to receive a massage from yourself or from others. Just massaging around that bone. And then take the legs out wide and we'll tap up the kidney channel. So it runs right to the inside of the bladder channel, which is right at the back of the legs, so right down the middle of the back of the legs. The kidney channel is slightly in front of that, so more medial. And it's a hidden channel. So you might remember from learning about the heart. The heart is right at the center of our being. It's said to be the emperor. But the kidneys store the essence or the jing in the body. So they're really at the heart, or they're the source of energy in the body, yin and yang energy. So the kidneys are another really fundamental organ in Chinese medicine. So tapping along this hidden inside edge of the legs, all the way up. And then the kidney energy, or the source energy, corresponds to our sexual energy and gives us the potential to reproduce. So it's the jing that creates new life. And so the energy rises up the meridian, the kidney meridian, past the sexual organs here. So either side of the pubic bone. You can tap with your fingers, as I am, or with your fists, depending on what your body is feeling at the moment. So right up the front of the body. It would be either side of the spine, past the solar plexus. Notice if there's any tenderness. For me, there's a lot of tenderness there today. And you can spend a little bit longer there, if you like. And then we tap straight up the kidney channel through the chest. And the channel ends just beneath the collarbones here in two depressions that you might be able to feel, kidney 27. So these two acupressure points connect directly with the kidney organs themselves. So the kidney organ is the yin organ and its partner is the bladder. So we'll begin tapping the bladder here. So in between the eyebrows, actually just around where the corner of the eyes is, the inner corner, where the bladder channel begins, connecting with the tear ducts. And then the bladder channel is quite an easy pathway to follow. It goes up in two direct lines from the corner of the eyebrows, over the front of the head, over the top of the skull, and then all the way around the back of the skull. And then here maybe let's stand up. So come to the back of the skull and tap with your fists, if you like, either side of the spine, down those thick muscles, the erector spinae muscles. And then you can't reach this bit of your back, unfortunately, but it's a nice place to put some balls. If you've got some balls, you could do that later. But you can swing your fists up the back as high as they go and tap the erector spinae muscles here. And then you'll get to the kidney organs around about here, and it might feel a bit more tender, so maybe go easy, especially if you're feeling depleted. And then tap down the lower back. Lots of bladder and kidney energy imbalances manifest in the lower back, around where the kidneys are. And then tap over the sacrum. And then come down the back of the buttocks and right down the back of the legs. So again, the bladder channel runs right down the center of the back of the thighs, the back of the knees. So again, quite an easy pathway to follow, right down the back of the calves. And then it ends at the tip of the little toe. So you can come round the outer edge of the foot and give the little toes a squeeze. So a nice stretch for the bladder channel. Any forward fold. So let's come into a forward fold as we're already here. But let it be a little bit more soft, perhaps the knees bent.
Let the head hang heavily. You can do what you like with the arms, just let them hang, or maybe have the hands to the inner elbows. So the water energy is said to rule over the bones and the marrow. And these two substances have those two opposing qualities of yin and yang. We think of the bones as very yin, dense, still, hard or solid, almost lifeless. We think of the bones as representing death. But then the marrow has the opposing quality of the production of blood. So inside the bones, not all of them, but some, blood is produced. Warm, red, vibrant, giving life, very yang in quality. And the brain is said to be marrow in Chinese medicine. So we think of the brain as the center of our being in the West. And we've talked about how the brain is really just the processing center in the East. But it has this very lively quality of yang, watery substance full of electrical charge. Just feeling into the weight of your brain, the marrow of the brain, and letting it descend like water does to the lowest point. So water will always move downwards, and here is the movement of the chi of water in a downwards direction, corresponding to the winter months when the world seems to be lifeless. But again, there's always the opposing quality of yang within yin. So when we're in the stillness of winter, there is the potential or the humming underneath the ground of new growth. Plant life, animal life hibernates in order to reserve the stores of energy over the winter months in preparation for the bouncing back of life in spring. Let's let the hands drop down and come into a downward facing dog. This is another nice pose for the bladder channel. Feel free to move around a little bit in your down dog so we can bring yang into our yin practice, but keep it nice and slow. And then start to slowly walk the feet up to the hands, almost as a moving meditation, feeling the balls of the feet connect with the ground, and then the sinking of the heels like water towards the earth. Keeping the head low, allowing the mind to be a little bit more passive. Taking the feet out wide as you come forwards so that they're to the outside of the hands. And then slowly bending the knees down to come into yogi squat. Using bricks under the heels if you need them, hands in prayer. Come towards stillness. And allow the spine to be upright. Let the marrow of the brain sink while the crown of the head lifts. Take a breath. And then take the hands down so that you can drop down onto your buttocks. And we'll take the legs out wide for our first yin shape. So it doesn't matter how wide your legs are, and you might well want a prop to rest your head or your hands on. Let's start over on the right side. So rotate your navel to look at your right leg, and then hands either side of that right leg, or again using a prop if you need. Let's come into a forward fold. So remember with the yin practice that we're always yielding, responding, softening, letting go. Let gravity take you to the place that you're going to get to without any sense of
having an aim or an end point. You don't know where you're going to get to. But you know if something is unsafe, in which case you need to take some props to support, because your body will, if it's relaxed, drop deeply. So if you know that it can't go further without pain, then you need to prop it up so that it can rest into something higher than the floor. So we're going to bring back that Nadi Shodhana practice, but just as a mental practice. So let's start with the right nostril. Breathe in through the right side. Exhale, visualize the breath releasing out of the left nostril. Breathe in through that same left side. Exhale out of the right. Again, this is a visualization, so you'll be breathing through both nostrils, but you're just imagining the breath flowing from one nostril to the other. So you inhale through the same right side. You exhale out of the left. Always inhaling through the same side. Always exhaling out of the opposite. So keep up that visualization of the breath, unless it's really challenging for you and you prefer just to focus on a natural breath. You don't have to control the breath in this practice. It's just a visual cue to help keep the mind where we are, working towards stillness. Allowing the body to respond to the movement of energy that this water element calls for or supports, moving downwards. Let's see if we can direct the next few rounds of breath into the left kidney, the yin kidney in the body. Even if you don't have a kidney organ there, still you can direct the flow of prana into that energy center. And take a final round of breath here. And then carefully release, again moving in a slow, in a yin way. If you've really let the body respond to that yielding of yin, then you may have come quite deep. And it can be quite intense, this pose, I would say. We're going to take the body very slowly over to the other side. Again, maybe moving almost in slow-mo, your navel twisting towards the left thigh, and then hands either side, or using a prop for the head or the arms, and coming over that left leg. So it takes some time to respond to letting go. Things want to hold on. Your back has probably been holding on to tension for the whole day. If you've been sitting or standing, it's unlikely you've been lying down all day. And so giving it permission to soften might take almost effort. That contradiction in this practice of effortless effort, not doing.
The focus on the breath will support that, because if you allow the mind to be clear or centered, and the thoughts can wave around or float around, but without any particular interest or without the clarity of the thoughts there, and the body will respond to what's going on in the mind, because of course they're connected. So if the mind is more soft and focused, then the body will become more soft and focused as well. So work with the mind and the body will follow. Just notice what's happening. Notice the effect of gravity. And keep returning to the breath, whether you're using Nadi Shodhana as a visual practice or just using the breath in its natural form as your visual or focal point. And here perhaps you could direct the breath into your right kidney, your more yang kidney, the masculine energy. Whether the actual organ is there or not, the energy center remains. You can move in yin, you are moving downwards in general. But if you need to move to change the position, if you've gone too deep, or maybe you need to move a proper way to get deeper, then it's not like you can't move or you can't think. You are allowed to do both of those things. But see if you can do it in a yin way, so just moving the limbs slowly, mindfully, using as little effort as you can. And so I'll leave you here in silence for another minute, practicing mindfulness of breathing. If you've lost the thread of the breath, return to it. Notice where you've come to with that effortless effort of being still. And then let yourself slowly come up. Again, move really carefully. Let the body readjust to that new form that you've created for it after a deep stretch. Let's just sit for a moment in Dandasana. So carefully bring the legs to greet one another. Hands by the side of the body. Palms down. You can flex the feet to point the toes back towards the shins and press into the hands to allow the crown of the head to extend upwards. It's realigning the spine with this more dynamic pose. And you can engage Jalandhara Bandha here, so tucking the chin, drawing it down,
to support the retention of prana in the body. Engage Mula Bandha as well, the pelvic floor muscles lifting, again to support the retention of energy in the body. Breathing deeply through both nostrils. So just watching the sensations of the last two stretches release. And then we're going to lie down. So come down onto your back of the head sliding away from you, so there's space along the whole of the bladder channel. And come into happy baby, so taking the outer edges of both feet, and you can rest the middle fingers around where kidney 1 is, letting the arms drop heavily towards the ground, just the grasp of the fingertips, bringing the knees down towards earth, and here opening up into the kidney meridian in the legs. See if you can allow the kidney meridian to be open along its length in the front of the torso as well, so letting the shoulder blades drop down so that the center of the front of the chest can open with every breath. So staying here. I'm going to read a poem that I read on the 5 Elements training by Naomi Shihab Nye, called The Art of Disappearing, which is a good art to practice during the overwhelm of the summer months. You don't have to do all of the activities that are presented to you. This is something that I need to remember. When they say, "Don't I know you?" say no. When they invite you to the party, remember what parties are like before answering. Someone telling you in a loud voice they once wrote a poem, greasy sausage balls on a paper plate, then reply. If they say, "We should get together," say, "Why?" It's not that you don't love them anymore. You're trying to remember something too important to forget. Trees, the monastery bell at twilight. Tell them you have a new project. It will never be finished. When someone recognizes you in a grocery store, nod briefly and become a cabbage. When someone you haven't seen in 10 years appears at the door, don't start singing him all your new songs. You will never catch up. Walk around feeling like a leaf. Know you could tumble any second, and then decide what to do with your time. So maybe you're still using the Nadi Shodhana breath. And we're going to do 10 more rounds in our happy baby. The yoga practice is a remembering of the fragility of life. It can induce the state of fear when we allow ourselves to think about how fragile we are. Fear is the emotion of the water element. Fear has its uses as well as being debilitating. It can drive us forwards. It gives us our willpower, our will or desire to survive. But if we let ourselves succumb to fear excessively, especially the fear of death, then we can become too attached to our life, too attached to the ego. So we need to allow the fear to flow through, acknowledge it, the emotion of it, but without attachment. And this is what our practice is for, to help us to recognize that everything, emotions, the environmental state, our friends, circumstances, everything comes and goes. Everything rises and disappears, each thought, each breath. And all we really have to do is focus on the breath to learn this wisdom. And so the practice is just to keep coming back to it. Not allowing ourselves to become overwhelmed with philosophical thoughts or fears or desires, attachments, suffering. Just coming back to each breath one at a time. Even in this pose you may be suffering. Holding on to something is challenging. Notice the suffering that you have to grasping, holding, staying still. We only have one breath left in this particular pose, so watch it intently. And then bring the legs together, draw the knees in, grab hold of the knees or the shins, and just rock gently from side to side, feeling maybe a gentle pressure in the lower back against the right kidney and the left. And then allow yourself to choose a side to drop onto, to rest just for a moment in fetal position. Your original watery shape, this one. The first one you started in when you were in your mother's womb, your womb. A shared watery space between you and your ancestry. And then let yourself come into a tabletop position, really taking your time, again moving in slow-mo perhaps. And again we'll bring a little bit of movement into the practice to keep the balance. So breathing in, arching the back, opening the kidney channel in the front of the body. Exhale to round the back, opening the bladder channel in the back of the body. So inhaling into the front of the body. Exhaling into the back of the body. Let's do 3 more rounds. So the spine correlates to this kidney and bladder energy. Remember that the water element rules over the bones in the body. And the bladder channel and the spine correspond to that real core energy that we have. So it's the bladder channel that is the first meridian that is formed when you're a fetus, or pre-fetal even, the very first energy line that is created by the bonds of atoms that are produced right in the first few days of your creation. Okay, so let's drop down onto the belly and come into a sphinx. So there's various different ways you can do this. You could Come into Sphinx with the elbows directly under the shoulders, so that will help to support the uplift of the upper spine without too much effort. For me, that feels like it's enough, but you might want to have a bolster under your elbows to come higher. You can also lift the elbows and have the hands down, and try to keep, although the arm bones are not stacked, if you apply the right kind of pressure to the hands, then you can stay upright without too much effort in the shoulders. But if you feel that there's a lot of compression around the kidneys, just come lower. So there's a little bit of effort required to keep the head up, but it's minimal. See if you can just let the skull float as it does. And let the sexual organs respond to gravity. And all of the bones of the pelvis and the thighs and the knees and the lower legs and the ankles and the feet and the toes. And perhaps you could visualize that kidney line beginning in the soles of the feet, wrapping around the inner ankle bone and traveling upwards, right up the inner leg towards the back of the leg, that hidden pathway that runs up past the pubic bone, past the sexual organs, right up the center of the body, of the front of the body, in two lines, either side of the belly button, up past the solar plexus, and down up the center of the chest, to the end of the channel at kidney 27, two acupressure points there that connect directly with the kidneys, just beneath the collarbones. Soften your jaw, soften the gaze or close the eyes. And here again, we'll take 10 more breaths consciously. Just keep returning to the breath. The mind wanders, that's just what it does. The practice is to acknowledge when the mind has been taken over by a vritti, a fluctuation of the mind, and return to something stable, stable-ish. The breath is stable in a way because it's always there, but it's of course always changing as well. Yang within yin. When you finish your 10 breaths, let's come very carefully back into a child's pose. So let your spine drop back down to the ground first, and the hands can slide underneath the chest. Pressing into the hands, try not to contract the belly as you come back. And then take it slow into child's pose, arms in front or by the side, whatever feels best. And you could also use a bolster
if you like something a bit more restorative and gentle. Feeling the sensation of the last pose, allowing yourself to breathe into both kidneys, the space between them, which we call Mingmen,
which is the pilot light or the energy center of that source chi. The source chi is called Jing. And the Jing is passed to you in that moment of conception by your parents. So you receive the united Jing or essence from your parents, and then that creates you. And the reserves of Jing that are not used during that creation are then stored by the kidneys. And little bits of Jing are used throughout the course of your life to ignite the processes of all of the other organs. And so the Jing is depleted bit by bit. We can retain the reserves of Jing through right practices. So eating well, sleeping well, doing the practice that we're doing now, not burning the candle at both ends. Ultimately, the Jing is always going to be depleted a little bit just to keep you alive. So a bit like the breath, it will keep you alive, but there's only a finite amount of it. And so our practice is just to honor the reserves that we have and make the most of them, recognizing that life is finite. Okay, so let yourself come up slowly from your child's pose. Take the hands back down to the ground and just release into the spine in a more fluid way now. Something perhaps a little different to a cat-cow, getting into the sides, rolling into the head, freedom of movement. And then let's come back up into a downward facing dog, stretching out again the bladder channel, this time maybe staying in stillness and allowing the knees to be straight, pressing into the hands to lift the shoulders, the hips, making a mountain out of your body. You can visualize that the very top of your hips is the peak of the mountain covered in snow. And the snow begins to melt. And that icy water slides down the spine to the back of the neck, down the back of the skull, along the bladder channel, where it pools right at the top of the skull and then drips down to the ground. And then on the other side, the icy water melts down the back of the thighs, right down the center of the knees and the calves, dripping round the outside of the feet to the tips of the little toes. Here is the bladder channel. Let's walk the feet forwards and come back into your yogi squat. Palms together, lifting up through the crown of the head. And we can press the inner thighs into the elbows, contracting the kidney channels, or the muscles that support the kidney channels, to enable the spine to grow a little bit taller. Take a breath. And then allow your hips to sink down to the ground. And then either coming into Paschimottanasana, so a seated forward fold, or you could come into Halasana, coming into plow pose, so feet up and overhead. If you're coming into this, your feet don't easily touch the ground, it's probably going to be quite hard to sustain, but you certainly need to use the support of the hands if your feet are away from the ground, and you could use a bolster under the feet if you like. Be really careful with the neck, with the spine, make sure that this is appropriate for you. And if it feels too dynamic, or perhaps you're menstruating, then again, a seated forward fold is the same thing, but just in a slightly different way.
If you're in a seated forward fold, you can of course use as many props as you like under the head. Feel free to slide them forwards or down if you like during the course of holding. We'll be here for 5 minutes. So just making sure that you've come into a position that you can sustain. If there's lower back issues, then you want to prop yourself up so that there's no pain or major discomfort. But this can really help to alleviate lower back pain as long as you're allowing yourself to be in a shape that is safe. So props is really the key. You can direct the breath here, again using the Nadi Shodhana technique that we started with, into both of the kidneys. Or you could again just focus on the breath, maybe feel it moving into the lower back to support a gentle uplift of the lumbar spine, allowing you to come a little bit deeper with each exhalation.
So this winter period, or the most yin period in the cycle of the 5 elements, in the cycle of life, can make us think about death or the end of a cycle. It doesn't have to be the end of a particular life, but perhaps the end of a particular period of time. And as I've mentioned before, that time of the waning of the energy, when we're in the depths of the winter months, or we're in the still period after a period of great activity, there has to be rest. And it's in that rest period, in the time when the energy has seemingly stopped, that we can draw from the reserves of energy that we have from the Jing in order to, again, renew the life cycle, so move into the next phase. I'm going to read a poem by Mary Oliver called When Death Comes. When death comes, like the hungry bear in autumn, when death comes and takes all the bright coins from his purse to buy me and snaps his purse shut, when death comes, like the measles pox, when death comes like an iceberg between the shoulder blades, I want to step through the door full of curiosity, wondering, what is it going to be like, that cottage of darkness? And therefore I look upon everything as a brotherhood and a sisterhood, and I look upon time as no more than an idea, and I consider eternity as another possibility. And I think of each life as a flower, as common as a field daisy and as singular, and each name a comfortable music in the mouth, tending as all music does towards silence, and each body a lion of courage and something precious to the earth. When it's over, I want to say, all my life I was a bride married to amazement. I was a bridegroom taking the world into my arms. When it's over, I don't want to wonder if I've made of my life something particular and real. I don't want to find myself sighing and frightened or full of an argument. I don't want to end up simply having visited this world. So keep returning to the breath. Observe the reaction to these concepts in your body. Somatically, where do you feel them? What thoughts arise? Acknowledge them. Let's see if we can stay with them rather than running away from. Resting in stillness by observing the breath of life that we've been gifted We cannot have yin without yang. We cannot have life without death. And it's only through its opposite that we can acknowledge and experience the other. So acknowledging death enables us to live. Being in darkness allows us to appreciate the light. Perhaps you feel uncomfortable in this asana, but there will be a sense of relief when it ends, which it will, as everything does. We only have 10 more breaths as we are in this shape. Let's see if we can watch each one with exquisite detail.
We'll move slowly out of the pose into a shavasana. You might want to take a bolster under your knees for this shavasana and make sure that you're warm. Make sure there's space around all of the joints. And that your body can rest in comfort. Shavasana is corpse pose. It's the opportunity at the end of each practice to acknowledge the end of things. It is during this Shavasana that we really allow the mind to be completely still, and the practice can help with this. If the mind is still wandering, you can continue to use the breath as your focal point, but you can also allow the mind to just be open to the experience of aliveness, using all senses to feel, taste, hear, smell, and see the darkness behind your eyelids and perhaps the penetration of light. Allowing yourself to receive everything without judgment. Allowing yourself to perceive the movement of your body while it remains relatively still. Breath within stillness, yin within yang.
So, of course, as always, you can stay lying down for as long as you like. You don't have to move unless you do. Just observe before you do move the weight of the bones of the body, the weight of the marrow of your brain. And then just lightly move into the tips of the toes and the fingertips, exploring the space around them. Open and close the jaw, releasing into the bones there. And then begin to roll into your wrists and your ankle joints. And stretch into a big yawn, reaching the arms above the head and pointing the toes. Tucking the knees into the chest, releasing the lower back with a little rock. And again, choosing a side to roll into a fetal position. Coming back into a seated position, if that's where you're choosing to be. Allowing the spine to be upright from the root of your hips right up to the crown of the head. And then bringing the hands into prayer in front of the heart, brushing against the kidney channel in the front of the chest. And acknowledge yourself for taking the time to practice. Acknowledge the wisdom of these practices that's been passed generously to us over thousands of years. Acknowledging your ancestors for the struggles that they've gone through to create your life. And acknowledge all beings. Giving thanks for this life. Take a deep breath in. Exhale, bowing down to the earth for sustaining our life. And inhale with the hands back into prayer, bowing down the head, here drawing this practice to a close.